Hey guys, this is Comic Uno and Comic Frontline, and this is Comic Uno episode 130, and this is a show where I review all the comics I've read this week in one show. So this week I have 20 books, pretty average week, thank God, after having 30 books last week. So let's get started. We go worst pick of the week to best pick of the week, and what was worst pick of the week? Number 20 was Deadpool issue 6. So I picked this up because it looked interesting with the Deadpool 2009 stuff, but I wasn't a big fan of the artwork. It was a little messy in my opinion, and I wasn't a fan of the story either. Of Deadpool's daughter, I thought could have been interesting. Obviously dealing with Deadpool and his wife, which we've seen a bit in the book, but yeah, it wasn't just interested in this book as much as I wanted to be. It was kind of funny with the C-SPAN stuff, with Deadpool being in hell watching C-SPAN all his life. But I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, not really worth picking up for me. So Deadpool issue 6 gets 2 stars, and that is number 20. Alright, so now we're moving on to number 19, which sadly is so low because I really want to like this book, but Starbrand and Nightmask issue 2. Now, I'm a huge Greg Weisman fan, and I really want to support this book, so I'm gonna give the next issue a try too. I'll probably read it digitally though, so I'll probably drop it printed, but I still can't get into this book. I've never read these characters before, and I feel like you still need a history of these characters to have attachment. So I hope to grow to like them. Things I liked, honestly, was still the college setting and adding Kong. I thought that was cool. If you're Ultimate Spider-Man fan, you read the original Ultimate Spider-Man, Kong was one of Peter's friends and also dated Kitty Pryde for a little while. So he's a really cool character that we haven't seen in a really long time. And also he was in Spectacular Spider-Man, which Greg Weisman wrote. So it's cool to see his character in the book, and I'm really excited to see how he grows, especially because he knows the identity of Starbrand and Nightmask and is trying to tell Starbrand and Nightmask that he knows. And this is very much playing off of the Ultimate Spider-Man arc too, because he always knew that Peter Parker was Spider-Man, but was just trying to see when Peter would tell him, and he is trying to be a good friend. So I like Kong so far in the book, and it seems like they're introducing a good set of supporting characters I hope they play with more. But the boring part of this issue is mostly a fight, and they try to explain the past of them in exposition form. And also the artwork, I think, is something that's hard to get into. I think the colors clash a bit. Like over here, it looks like this page is going into this page because of the blue. But it's actually just one page each. It's not panels crossing into different pages, which usually is a Brian Michael Bendis thing to do. But yeah, I think the colors could be a lot better. I also don't really like the art style, which is kind of blocky for me. But I will keep the book and try it out because again, I really do like Weisman's writing, and I think the supporting characters definitely have some interesting story to tell, especially with Kong. So sadly, Starbrand and Nightmask issue 2 though gets 2 stars for me. And that was number 19. Moving on to number 18, which is a book I was excited to read, but was disappointed with overall, and that was Devolution issue 1, which is from Dynamite Comics, which I actually haven't read anything from Dynamite Comics in a long time. Probably last time was Bionic Woman, which I liked overall. I enjoyed that series a lot, because I'm a fan of the 1970s television show. And also the reboot wasn't bad either. But going into it, Devolution, which is written by Rick Remender, which I usually like his work a bit, but I think the artwork kind of took me off from this book. Has a lot of line work, it's very dark. You actually don't even see the main character's face that often in this book. And I honestly couldn't tell you who was the main character because it seemed like they were talking about the girl we saw a lot in third person. So the person narrating the book is the main character, I guess, but we didn't really get to see her or him. So that was disappointing, I guess, was not to really learn a lot about the character, but I thought it was a good job at telling us what this world is. But what the world is about, it's about these creatures that scientists create not to believe God and what happens to the world because of these creatures. So it's a very kind of religious book, apocalyptic type book, and I think it's interesting, but the art could be better, and again, the characters could have hooked me a bit more, so I don't know if I'll get the next issue. So I gave that 2.5 stars. Alright, Moving on to number 17, another book that I'm disappointed to see so low, and that is Wonder Woman issue 48. I still thought this was a bit more of a filler issue until the end of the book, because with this issue, you get to see kind of a generic story, in my opinion, with this scientist that's from London who wants to do her parents good. She builds this poison, tries to attack the president, and Wonder Woman talks about, justice, of course, and, the American way and trying to destroy this villain. And that's kind of what's going on with her, and just, I guess, reevaluates why she is Wonder Woman and how she's balancing her life as God of War and trying to fight these people. But the most interesting part was the ending. With Zeke, something's going on with the baby, so I thought that was cool. Also, big compliment, I think, of the artwork. I think the book with David Finch's art keeps improving. I wasn't a fan of the beginning of the artwork with Wonder Woman, but I really think this was some of David Finch's best artwork for the book. I thought it was really well done, and definitely a big compliment of that. But again, wasn't too interested in this issue, and hopefully with the cliffhanger, next issue will be more interesting for me. So Wonder Woman issue 48 gets 2.5 stars, sadly, for issue, or that was number 17, pretty sure. Let me just double check. So, now we're up to number 16, another book I'm disappointed with, and that is Injustice: Gods Among Us, Year 5, Issue 2. It's not a horrible book, but I feel like I've been reading Injustice for such a long time. I want the story to progress a little bit more, and it really doesn't here. With this issue, it's more about the villains teaming up, and the villains teaming up with Superman and saying, yeah, we can have an idea of how to attack Batman. And that's pretty much the whole story. And also, Superman explaining to his team, this is not democracy. I'm kind of like your dictator, and you have to listen to me. And then Wonder Woman tries to explain to him, it's like, no, well, we are the people that helped you, so you gotta, accept our help and also accept our opinion. And then the good cliffhanger of this book was Bane, who's teaming up with Superman now, capturing Catwoman to try to get information from her and interrogating her. So I think the next issue, hopefully, will be a good character-based issue with Catwoman. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a pretty lackluster issue that doesn't really progress the story that much. Yeah, of course, you have the villains and some pawn switching sides, but how many times have we seen that with this book? I kind of want something fresh and new with this last chapter that just hasn't impressed me yet. But the artwork was pretty well done, even though you could tell it's two different artists. I know it's a digital first book, so you have two different chapters, but kind of wish that art was a bit more consistent with the other. I thought the first chapter had better artwork than the second. So this book is number 16, and I gave that 2.5 stars. Moving on to number 15, which is Lucifer, issue 2, which will probably be the last issue I buy of Lucifer, because I definitely realized that, which I realized in the first issue, but I was hoping would change in the second issue, is that you have to have read the old Vertigo stuff to really enjoy this book. Artwork is pretty well done. I like Lucifer as a character, I guess, enough for someone that has never read the Lucifer stuff beforehand, but it's a very hard hook for new readers, and I am a new reader to Lucifer, and it doesn't really appeal to me. So Lucifer issue 2 gets 2.5 stars. Again, this is not a bad book. It's just for me as a new reader, it's hard to connect to. So I will be dropping Lucifer after this issue. And that's number 15. Moving on to number 14, which is Batman and Robin Eternal issue 16, which is, again, concentrating on the Jason Todd and Tim Drake side of the story, which I don't think is fully necessary for this mother story. But the thing I liked about it was going into Jason's head, dealing with fear, which is definitely a big thing in this issue, or in the story arc in general, is what Batman's fearful of, obviously, his past, and this mother character. You also have Scarecrow in some flashbacks with Robin, so you deal with fear there, and now you see Jason deal with his fear, which was dying by the hands of the Joker. And then what happens when you don't have fear. So those things were interesting, but at the same time it doesn't progress the plot too much. So that's why I gave this 3 stars. It wasn't a bad issue, but I don't know if it was a totally needed issue. So Batman and Robin Eternal issue 16 gets 3 stars. And that's number 15. So pretty sure up to number 14. Just want to make sure I am counting right. No, that was number 14. We're up to number 13, so totally messed up the numbers somewhere. So number 13 is... That's why I always have to check. Alright, so Postal issue 3. I like this book for the most part. You know, it's kind of this middle ground book that I just keep reading because the story is interesting enough. But it's not an amazing book. I'm like, you have to read Postal. But it's cool. I think the world they're creating here is interesting. We see a new member join Eden, which is this mysterious town of all these villainous people. And we see what makes her villainous. And again, you're also learning about the characters we've already established. Like our main character's mother, Maggie, who I find really interesting. I'm like, why is she here? And is she manipulating our main character? I don't know. Artwork's pretty plain, but again, the story is something original, I feel, and still keeps me interested. So I gave that 3 stars. And that was number 13, not 14. Alright, number 12, we are up to, and that is Superzero, issue 2. And I'm reading this digitally now. I did get the first issue printed. And I gave this 3 stars because I like the story for the most part. I like the plot of this girl who wants to be a superhero and will do anything to do that. The artwork's a bit light, but I like the art style for the most part. And I guess the reason this is a little lower, though, is because it's kind of hard to connect to the character because she's so invested in becoming a hero, and it's kind of hard to feel attached to her in a way. And she doesn't have that many likable qualities. She keeps wanting to be beat up, and I hopefully as the series goes on, we will find more likable qualities about her. But she's definitely more of this comedic relief, and probably needs to go to a psychiatrist in the book. But yeah, overall, I like it, and I like the ending. That definitely kept me to say, hey, I want issue 3, because she wants to learn martial arts, and the guy you wouldn't expect, which was actually the homeless person who she wanted to make a mission with, and then the parents are like, this guy is actually really nice, so he's living in their backyard right now. I really like his character. I like how original he is. And he's the one who's going to teach her martial arts, so I'm really, really interested in that. So overall, I gave Superzero issue 2 3 stars with a pretty good cliffhanger. Right, now we are moving on to number 11, I think we're up to. We are, and that is Titans Hunt, issue 4. So this is a bit lower than issue 3 was. I thought that was a bit better. Because once again, I feel like they're trying to fit too much in one issue. Too many characters in this book. You have Hawk and Dove's story now, Mal's story, Aqualad, and Wonder Girl and Nightwing in one section, and then even Roy Harper in another. So there's a lot going on, and once again, most of these characters are not together. The best part of this issue definitely is Nightwing, Donna, or, you know, Dick, Donna, and Aqualad. Those are definitely the best parts. And I guess I like the idea of them all sharing this vision of this forest. It's like, what is this forest all about? Weaker parts, probably Hawk and Dove and Roy. Those felt very separated, those stories. And artwork is pretty average. I don't love the shading at points. I think it's a bit too dark at some points of the issue. But overall, I still like the book, but I thought issue 3 was a bit better. So Titans Hunt issue 4 gets 3.5 stars. Alright, I think we're up to number 10 now. We are on number 10, which is Captain Marvel, issue 1. So this book I thought was pretty okay. I thought it was a good start. I think they showed Captain Marvel's character really well. But for me, it's a little harder to connect because I've never enjoyed Alpha Flight and, like, the space stories and, like, living in space type stories. But, again, the most positive part of this issue was obviously Captain Marvel, her characterization. Artwork was really well done, too. I think it fit the story. I like the coloring for the book. But hopefully there will be a bit more of a hook for the next issue for me. But there was an interesting cliffhanger with whoever's throwing these meteoroids or meteors into the ship or near the ship. I like that Captain Marvel didn't want this to be a desk job, but wanted to, you know, wanted to fight. She wanted to be on the front lines more. So that was cool. And hopefully they could flesh out the supporting characters a bit more. I think that's something they introduced here, but they didn't find me I didn't find them as interesting as they could be. So flesh them out more, make us invested in Alpha Flight in general. So Captain Marvel issue 1 gets 3.5 stars. Definitely will pick up issue 2 to see where it goes. But I thought issue 1 was pretty average. So 3.5 stars. Alright, so we are up to number 9, which is Star Wars, issue 15, and I thought this was a pretty good book. The reason it's a little lower is because it's not necessarily something you need to read. It's very much a one-shot issue, and I'm not a huge Obi-Wan Kenobi fan, but I love the artwork. The artwork was gorgeous for this book, and I would say it's like doing the prequels, but in a better way, because this is when Luke was younger, and they compare it to the prequels a lot with Anakin being younger, and I like that. I enjoyed that aspect, and it was cool to get in Obi-Wan Kenobi's head and see him before Episode 4, like what he looked like and what he was doing when Luke was younger, and see him as a younger child. Hopefully they could do the same thing with Leia. I think that would be even more interesting to see what she was up to when she was a little girl, you know, and see me, like, did she have any Force possibilities back then? So I would like to see them do that. So yeah, the best aspect of this book was definitely the artwork and very good dialogue. I liked it. Again, not necessarily something you need to read, but it was a fun issue. So Star Wars issue 15 gets 3.5 stars. Alright, moving on to number 8, which is Batgirl, issue 47. This book I had fun with. I had fun with the Stephanie and Batgirl and Harper Row team up. I thought that was the best part, and it's most of the issue. It's them dressing up as police officers, getting caught, and that was definitely a fun aspect. Things I don't love about this book is kind of the inconsistencies of it. I feel like a lot of times they depower Barbara, or not depower her. They make it seem like she's less experienced than she is. And I hope in future issues they can show, like, yeah, she's been part of the Bat family for a really long time. And then when you compare her abilities to, like, Stephanie and Harper, you don't really see that she's more advanced than them, which I think is weird because they're obviously heroes that just started. Same for her father. He's a hero that, obviously, he's been not fighting crime as a vigilante for a long time. He's been in the business for a long time as a cop, but it's a different vein to be a superhero, so I feel like she should be more experienced, and her father also, and have some more tricks up her sleeves, and hopefully something we get to see in the future. But yeah, overall, it's a fun issue. The main plot with her losing her memory, still don't really know what to think about it, not totally interested in it, but still some fun character interactions. So Batgirl, issue 47, gets 3.5 stars. That's number 8. Alright, so now we're moving on to number 7. Which is Miss Marvel, issue 3. Yeah, you know, this book didn't make 4 stars, which I was upset. I was looking forward to this issue, but, you know, I think Hydra in that storyline could have been stronger. But the best part of this issue was definitely, Mark, I want to say her name is Mark, Bruno's girlfriend, and Mike and Kamala teaming up without Mike knowing it's Kamala, you know? I enjoyed that, and also Kamala saving the day, you know, destroying Hydra, but people still thinking, like, no, you are a scam, you know? You're putting your face beside posters, or besides whatever, buses. So I like that, but also gave Kamala a chance to know who Mike is and like her a little bit more. So I'm excited for future issues for Kamala to really come face to face with Mike and say, hey, let's be friends, because Mike is open to be friends. So it'll be interesting to see, I guess, Kamala not move on from Bruno, but at the same time, yeah, you know, discover that they can be friends. I know she still loves him, and see if she can get over him now that he does have a girlfriend, and see if they can all become friends. So the weaker part definitely was the plot with Hydra, but it did bring out some interesting stuff between Mike and Kamala. And one thing I also want to bring up is that I feel like the ending was a bit abrupt. I was like, whoa, that's the ending? I expected more with, like, Mike and Kamala. I thought that would be the ending. So maybe they could have saved a couple more pages where Kamala talks to Mike and says, hey, you know, maybe we should be friends or whatever, and have that talk. I think that this issue could have used that. So Miss Marvel issue 3 gets 3.5 stars. I was a little disappointed with this issue, but still definitely worth picking up. Alright, so now we're on number 6. Which is Astonishing Ant Man, issue 4. This book, it didn't make it quite to 4 stars. It was close. But I'm glad that they encountered the Cassie idea. Of course, I gotta talk about it. Cassie's one of my favorite characters, and a part of this book I really enjoy. Alright, so the problem why I didn't make 4 stars is because I still don't like the aspect of Ant-Man saying, yeah, I gotta stay away from Cassie, I have to do all these wrong things. And in him being more of a screw-up, then I think that's necessary. Like, there's a scene between Cassie and Scott where she says, you left me, and that hurt, and I don't understand. Like, I always looked up to you, and that's why I have to leave you, I can't look at you because I don't understand how I disappointed you. Like, why weren't you there when I needed you? I'm always there when you need me. And then I still don't really understand, and this is, I think, more convenience to the plot, that why he can't be with Cassie. He's like, oh, well, she'll be in danger. But I kind of wish there was a scene where Cassie says, obviously he thinks that because of the problem that Cassie died, I think there could be a scene where Cassie says, I died because of my decisions, not because of yours. Like, let me in. And I hope there will be a scene like that in the future, because that is why she died. It was her own superheroics, not her father's. And again, it's more convenience to the plot that he's saying, oh, well, I have to stay away because you'll get hurt. It's just kind of a trope I'm always tired of in comics. But the reason this is high is because there were some really good moments between Cassie and Scott. And I like the story overall of him, being part of the security place and then doing this whole basketball charity event. But yeah, Cassie was definitely a big highlight for me in this issue. And her, that moment where she tries to be a hero and one of her friends, who I have no idea who the friend is, and I'm really curious of why Cassie said she was a superhero to her, but hopefully we'll learn in the future. But it's like, you're not a superhero anymore, Cassie. It's like, I know, but I have to do this. So she obviously still has super heroic instincts, which hopefully will be explored in the future. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a good issue. The ending, I don't really care about another Ant-Man, but let's see, another Giant Man. And supposedly that's the next issue, is looking into the Giant Man, but the Cassie issue is supposed to be next, where we get to see a whole highlight of her. So I hope it's a solicitations mistake on the book's part, but the way it ended, it seemed like it will be the Ant-Man story, or this new giant Ant-Man story. So I'm wondering if they are delaying the Cassie issue, or if they're not having it at all. Hopefully they have it, because for my sake, I need it. But it was a good issue. Couldn't get to the 4 stars because of the reasons I said. We'll see what the next issue brings, and what will the next issue be? I don't know. The Astonishing Ant Man issue 4 gets 3.5 stars, and that's number 6. Moving on to number 5, and that is Patsy Walker, aka Hellcat issue 2. Now this is a bit lower than the first issue, because I did think the first issue did some stuff a little better, but this issue felt a little disjointed, because if you can see on the cover, you see that there's this kind of female hero, everyone coming together kind of dinner thing they do. And it felt a little disjointed when they had them. It's like, oh, I'm going to invite my friends together and talk about, just hanging out. I just want, she wanted a day off. It's like, I worked a lot, let's hang out. So that kind of felt a little disjointed, but because of pretty much the whole issue being about her being in retail and getting fired. But overall, I liked the issue. I could have used more Hellcat, and I usually love the secret identity type issues where they focus a lot on the secret identity and have a good balance between the superhero. But here I actually could have used more of Hellcat. Maybe because we didn't really get to see her too much in the first issue. And I don't know if we're going to see a lot of her adventures in next issues. I feel like it's going to be more about Patsy. But I think they need to find a bit more of a balance between Hellcat and Patsy Walker's life. Things I definitely liked was Hetty finally making a real appearance in this issue, so that was kind of cool. Definitely enjoyed that. Still curious if Hetty knows that she's Hellcat or not, because in the early 2000s series, the mini-series that came out, they were actually friends at that point, and she knew everything that was happening to Patty and, going to hell and everything. So I'm curious if they're going to have that continuity. Hope they do. Because I'm a fan of, keeping the continuity. So, we'll see. But I liked the issue. It was fun. A little too much anime style. I think they overused it. But Still kind of cool to see Patsy work in retail, and that was definitely fun. And there's some fun lines here and there. So, Patsy Walker, aka Hellcat, issue 2 gets 4 stars, and that is number 5 for me. Moving on to number 4, which is Batman, issue 48. Now, this definitely would have been higher if it wasn't for the Mr. Bloom, James Gordon parts. So here we get to see Mr. Bloom kind of gives his motives of why he's doing the things he's doing, and this is just kind of a catalyst to bring Bruce back to being Batman. Because most of this issue is actually about Joker and Bruce working, not working together, but talking to each other about their lives. And there's just this creepy scene between Joker and Bruce, and Joker about to commit suicide, or really just trying to convince Bruce to be Batman again. It's a really interesting scene between those two, and it's most of the issue. But again, the things that took me out was definitely the Mr. Bloom stuff. So that's why it's not as high as it might have been if it wasn't for those parts, but definitely some good dialogue between Batman and Joker. So Batman issue 48 gets 4 stars, and that is number 4. Alright, moving on to number 3, which is Sunflower issue 3, a book I am totally enjoying. It's from 451 Media Group that more people should definitely be reading. I read it off Comixology because my store doesn't have it printed, or else I would buy it printed. And with this issue, I will say this is a little slower than the other two, and it was a really quick read. I'm like, oh my god, that's it? But it's about our main character's journey. She drinks this liquid, and she is going on this journey trying to find her daughter, and she has to go up against the meanest guy there is to do so. So these people are preparing her to do it, and they say if you want to meet with him, you have to get pretty much a tattoo. You need to get a scar. So they have to scar her a picture, and she sees this big mural of it looked like pharaohs and like Egyptian art, and he's like, I want this, and he's like, all of it? Yeah, all of it. So I thought that was interesting, and that's how the issue ends. Artwork's gorgeous. I love the character. I love the narration. And again, this was a little shorter than the others, or else it would have been higher, but really enjoyed the issues. So Sunflower issue 3 gets 4 stars. And that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is Poison Ivy, Cycle of Life and Death, issue 1. I was pleasantly surprised with this book. Now, I wasn't even going to originally pick this up. If it was a heavier week, I probably wouldn't have. But it was only, I had my average amount, so I picked it up. And I really liked this because it was going back to who Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn used to be. And you discover more about their relationship together. And it was more serious. I mean, it's still Harley Quinn being comedic and having her personality, but it wasn't all just about the comedy. It was about these two and their relationship. And also Poison Ivy in general. Is she more plant or is she more human? And then they establish a really cool mystery in this issue for the miniseries of who killed Poison Ivy's friend. And how she died. So I think this is a perfect first issue where you have really good characterization for Poison Ivy and Harley. The artwork's a bit lighter than I would have liked for coloring wise. I think it could have been a little darker, but really great artwork. A good serious tone for both Harley and Poison Ivy. Really great there. But yeah, going back to it, it was great characterization, good plot, and it really got me hooked for this first issue. So if you're going to pass on it, pick this up. It was a really well done issue, and I was pleasantly surprised by it. So I give it 4 stars. Really well done. And that is number 2. Moving on to number 1, pick of the week is Silver Surfer, issue 1. I really enjoyed the last volume of Silver Surfer, and I think it continues really well with this issue. In a really creative way, too. So we see that Dawn and Norrin go back to Earth, and Dawn sees that she's missed a little bit with her family. Dawn's sister got married, she's having a baby, and she feels a little bad, but her family makes her feel better. It's like, no, don't worry about it, you should have your adventures. And right when they're getting used to, being on Earth and watching The Wizard of Oz, these aliens attack, and they take all of the art away on Earth. and they become our favorite protagonists, like Zorro or the Bride from Kill Bill, Sherlock Holmes, all the Harry Potter, all these characters. And what's interesting is that they actually become, you know, a personification of these characters, these heroes. And Dawn plays with that and actually defeats these aliens because of it. So there's a really cool dialogue. I'll talk about that more in that scene. And then it ends with the Thing joining, I guess, for the next story arc and dealing with this alien. So the parts I didn't like about this issue probably was the Thing. They could have left that for later. And also I think this book could have been a little bit more new reader friendly. But overall I had a blast with this book. So I read the past volume and I think it was a good next chapter. It dealt with Dawn's family really well, an aspect I really like about the book. Artwork was gorgeous. I think it fits this book so well. And the best part of this book was definitely the villain idea, you know, seeing that they stole art and how important art is. And I love Dawn's monologue about that, saying, you know, why are characters so important to us? Because they're part of us, you know? And as someone who loves comics and television and literature, I thought that was really cool. You know, it was a really cool point about characters and why we feel connected to them. So Silver Surfer issue 1 I thought was really creative and was a good first issue for Silver Surfer and really reminded me why I really love this book and this series and why I think this is some of Dan Slott's and Mike Allred's best work. So read Silver Surfer if you haven't. It was my pick of the week. I gave it 4.5 stars. Hope you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Also description below. Don't forget to like my Facebook page for Like Father, Like Daughter. Don't forget to follow my comic book. And, of course, I'll Comic Uno episode 131 next week. So I'll see you guys later. Bye.